So, music photographers, you could probably agree there's one thing in particular that we hate the most when it goes to shooting a gig, and that is being swamped with red light. What about you guys? How's it going? Hope you're all keeping well today. Hope everything is good where you are. So if you've dabbled with music photography, or if you're like me and has been working on it for quite a long time, you'll probably agree that the one thing that we hate the most when it goes to shooting a gig is being swamped with one colour in particular of light, and that is red light. For some reason, bands or just most lighting technicians just seem to think, oh, let's just flood the place with red lights, no other colours, no front of house lights or anything, just wall to wall red, thinking it just looks cool, when in reality it's really annoying. And if you're like me, I've had times where I've gone to a gig and if it's just constant red lights, I've just felt like packing the camera into the bag and just heading home and just not bothering, because I know nothing is really going to look good. Well, you could actually be surprised at what all you can do in post-production. That's what I want to show you today. So I just want to run through some things to show you how you can control red light in post-production. Now, we're not going to completely get rid of it or anything like that. We're just going to find ways to manage it, so tone it down, change the colors, anything like that, so that way you can get a shot that looks like this to looking like this. So I've got Lightroom open up here, and if you want to follow along with me, if there's one shot in particular that you thought has looked really good but you can't seem to get it edited right because of the way the red light is working, well, follow along with me. It'd be great to have you along on the ride, because there's a few things that I do want to show you, just my own ways of editing as I've gone along over the years. So yeah, it'd be great if you follow along with. So let's get editing away, shall we? So as you can see, I've got a shot here of US rock group Rival's Sons when they came to Belfast a while back, and all I've done here so far is just done some basic editing. I've turned off a lot of the different things that I'm going to be showing you throughout this session, and you can see just straight away from the shot there's quite a lot of harsh lighting going on, especially with the red. Like, there's mostly red in the background, some bit of purples here and there, but the red, it's very distracting, especially with the way that I've edited away here. So I'm just going to show you some things just to help you manage this red out here. So first of all, and this is probably the easiest thing that you could do just to help tone all this here down, and that is just go to your vibrancy and saturation. So what I'll always tend to do whenever I edit a gig is I love playing about with the vibrancy. A lot of photographers love to boost out the vibrancy, but I love toning them down. So you can see when I bring the vibrancy down, so I'm going to bring it down to about 80. Just look at what a difference it does me. If I go all the way to 100, like, we still have a bit of red here, but notice just around the face we got a bit more of that sort of natural look going on here, whereas if I bring that back up to 0, you know, we're just swamped with red lights. So I'm going to bring that back down. I'm going to keep it to about maybe about a sort of 70, 80 mark area. You know, whatever works the best. Just for this example, we're just winging it here. You could also throw in a wee bit of playing about with saturation. Now, the biggest difference of playing about with vibrancy and saturation is that vibrancy more looks at the sort of subtle colors. So you can see that when we go down to -100, it doesn't get rid of every color, but it just sort of helps tone down the sort of subtle colors. Whereas saturation is all about the overall color. Like, you can see when I go to 100, the colours are just completely boosted out. If I go to -100, we just basically turn our photograph to black and white. And that's probably the easiest thing that you could do with a shot that has a lot of red light going on. Just turn it to black and white, there you go. But what if you just don't want to do that? Even with the vibrancy turned that, I'm just going to turn the saturation down a little bit. So if at -55, you can see we've still got a bit of that red going on, but it's just made everything subtle all the way around. Like, all those sort of blues and magentas have now turned to a bit more of a white look, and we've got a bit more in the skin tones. Now, what I also like to throw in here if I'm playing about with vibrancy and saturation is I love to go up to the white balance. So I've already done a white balance play here, but if I turn it back to the way it was before, it's boosted up the oranges a good fair bit more, whereas if I bring it all the way back up, I've really increased on the oranges, whereas I've only turned it down just a little bit, so brought in a little bit more blues, and it's just made a much more nicer tone. Same again if I go to tint, if I bring it all the way to the greens, it's just made everything a bit more greeny, go all the way to the purples, so on and so forth. So putting in this balance of playing about with vibrance and saturation, while also maybe thinking about the white balance, is probably the first thing that I would go to when I'm playing about with a shot like this, just to sort of see what a difference it can make. The next thing you can do is go to the HSL. This is hue, saturation and luminance. So hue is just changing the different colors within a different color, so you can see you got reds, oranges and all. If I change them, it just sort of changes the hue of that color. Luminance is just the brightness and the darkness of a specific color, but the one I want to focus on the most is saturation. Now there's two ways that I can have a little play about with this. There's a little sort of marker here that I can click on, and I can go to a red section within the photograph and just turn it all the way down and just sort of see. So you can see I'm getting rid of a lot of that red. If I maybe want to fix up a lot of that sort of purple and magenta, it does a decent enough job in most cases. But what I want to do is, I mean, this is what I like to do as well, is I just go to every single color, tone them all the way down, and just sort of bring them up bit by bit. So I'm going to go to magenta and see what sort of magentas we have in the shot. So I want to make that nice and subtle. So for this sort of shot, minus 75, I'm just going to go here for this exercise. Same again with the purples. There's a lot of purple going on there. And I just want to make that about minus 70. Just make it nice and subtle. Blues, there's not really too much blue work going on in here, so something like that I'll make it about sort of maybe minus 50. Aqua, similar again, there's not really much aqua, but I wanted to put it to minus 80 just in case there is something hidden there. Green as well, same again, minus 80 on that, just to have a look. So then we're going to come to the three colors that's probably going to work the most in this shot, and that's yellow, orange and red. So I'm going to bring up the yellows just to see what happens there. Funny enough, there isn't actually too much yellow in there, but I want to do just something similar that I did with the purples now, and just sort of maybe make them about minus 80. Go to that. Let's go to orange, and I'm going to bring that up. Okay, so we're starting to introduce a lot of orange work here, so let's play about with that. So I want to maybe go, just tone it down, go to about minus 50. And then same again for red. Let's bring that up, and wow, we're mostly engulfed with the reds and the oranges. So let's bring all that down a good fair amount. So let's say minus 80. So we've sort of managed how a lot of that sort of red look is going on here. What I'll also maybe tend to do is go back up to basic and maybe bring the vibrancy down again, just to make it nice and subtle. So again, not changing the overall color, just sort of helping bring it down just that little bit more, and see how much more subtle that's made it. It's probably looking a little bit washed out here, but you can play about with these things to your heart's content. Just playing about with those colors. Make the shot black and white first of all, and bring each color up bit by bit as you go along, and just see, because there's a lot of colors that we don't tend to recognize within there, so you can just see what a difference that's made to the shot already. Now the next part I'm going to come to is a part that I know a lot of people don't tend to take for granted quite a good fair bit, but I do actually like coming into here because it sort of helps fine tunes a lot of the different sort of hidden colors, and that's going into camera calibration. So this is just essentially like all cameras are going to be different. All cameras have different color sciences going on. Some cameras will recognize reds a little bit differently, or greens or blues. Not all of them are going to look the same. What's almost similar to the HSL, where HSL you were going into reds, and if I go to red, it just gets rid of everything that is red. However, if I go to camera calibration and if I go to red, it sort of recognizes every single pixel that is going on in the shot, and whatever is going to be red or a red orientation, you can see as I change along, like it's made that shot purple, or if I go the other way, it's now made the shot a little bit more orange. So what I could do here is maybe just not make it as mad, so maybe about plus 50, and then I can tone the saturation down if I want to there, but it sort of starts introducing a lot of different things. So what you maybe want to do is start playing about with some of the others. Like, I know there's not a lot of green going on here, but you'd be amazed at what the camera can recognize. So if I change the green, it's not really making it that appeasing, so I'll go to blue. The blues and the reds are what I tend to focus on the most if I'm working on a gig shot. So you can see you got that sort of orange teal sort of look going on. So if I go even to about minus 65 on there, let's bring up the red just a tiny bit, and let's bring the saturation down on the blues just to see what happens. So it hasn't really done too much, but again, I quite like the tone that's hidden behind here. So what I'll do as well, go back up to basic, bring that vibrance or saturation down just to see. So it's a bit more of an orangey sort of shot going on now, but you can see it sort of help tone down, like even there with the saturation turned down, a bit more of an orangey look, but we've recovered a lot of the things within the singer himself, so we're losing all that red around there. So, you know, just messing around with the calibration can really make a big difference to your shot too. So another great thing that you can do in Lightroom is completely change the color within the shot by going into split toning. What I always like to do within split toning is you can change the colors within any highlights or shadows. So I'll always go to a color within highlight and shadow and just sort of, I'll hold down Alt, because then that way it gives me a representation of what it could look like within the shot. And as you can see, I could scroll along. As I scroll through the colors, we've got blues, purples, reds, all those different things. So I quite like, for this type of photograph, I maybe want a bit more of a skin tony look. So I've gone to 65. So it hasn't actually, I've released all of that, shows it hasn't actually done anything. If I go up into the saturation, that's when I start introducing that color. So maybe plus 50, and I'll do the same thing to the shadows. So hold down Alt and just move along, and you can see the shadow sort of does a lot more. And as I scroll along, maybe introduce a bit more of a bluey effect and go into saturation. So again, there's quite a lot of things going on here, but I'm going to go back again to the vibrance, tone that down. So we have more or less like a split tone sort of look going on here that can look really nice a lot of times. You can see with that sort of skin tony look I've managed to introduce back to the face. That bluey tone to the background has sort of helped distract the reds a little bit more, so it has done. But if I go back into the split tones, just turn that off just to see what a difference that there has made. And you can just play along as you go. Like if I maybe want to make, like there, introducing a bit more of a sort of tealy look has made the skin look quite cold, but it's introduced a lot more blues here, so we sort of help maybe change those colors a lot more, but it's toned down the overall red a good, like it's still there, but it's helped tone that down a good fair bit more. And then of course, when it comes down to it, as I've been showing you all along, you can start combining a lot of these different things all together. So this is the final shot here. This is just the final edit that I have done, and you can see minus 70 on the vibrance, minus 38 on the saturation. If I go to HSL, I've toned down the reds just ever so slight, but toned down those oranges a good fair bit more. If I go to hue, saturation and all that, mostly within the saturation I've calmed down. I actually didn't really do much with the camera calibration. I just sort of left that as it was, but I went up into the split toning. You can see I went for a bit of a browny sort of color on the highlights, but went for a more sort of bluey, tealy sort of style on the shadows. So I kept the shadow color nice and sort of subtle, but the highlights a little bit stronger. I mean, if I turn split toning off, just so you can see, introduces that sort of ready look. If I go into HSL, turn that off, you can see it's introduced the red a lot more, so that just helped tone it down. And then back to basic, if I bring the vibrance and saturation up, we have that red light all introduced. So you can bring all these things together. So sometimes the one thing can really change. Like you see at the start, the vibrance and saturation actually did make a big difference. But look what happens when you start to combine a lot of the things, just so you can get a shot that looks very similar to this here. So we haven't actually fully gotten rid of the red. We've just controlled it, but also helped bring out a lot more within the shot and maybe made it a bit more dramatic and add in some colors that can actually make the shot a little bit more exciting. So that's it. How easy was that? Just a few little slides here and there, and what a difference we've made to this photograph. Now, in my early days, what I like to do is whenever I see a photo that had a lot of red light or anything, I just made it black and white. I really wasn't a fan. I still am not now. But in a lot of cases, it can actually really make your shot dramatic, depending on what the band is. Like, if it's a really sort of deathy black metal band, then it works very well. But you can see what a difference we've made here to this photograph. We've just controlled the reds, introduced a few different things here and there that can sort of make the shot a little bit more dynamic and just sort of make the shot a little bit more different. So hopefully this video was helpful for you, and I hope you were following along with. So let me know in the comments down below of maybe some of the things that you would do to a shot like this here. Would you just delete it, or would you do a lot of the things that we've talked about? Let me know some of your ideas, let me know some of your thoughts, and don't be afraid to like, share, subscribe, and hit that wee bell icon so that you can stay up to date with more videos too. But until then guys, take care and enjoy the rest of your day.